going to call the meeting to order. This is the Town Administrator Screening Committee. Today is January 4th. This meeting is being cablecast by Area 58 Community Access Media, Channel 15, and will be posted by Area 58 on YouTube as soon as possible. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our first item is nomination and election of the Screening Committee Chair.
I'd like to nominate Tom Walsh for chair.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in
Any
favor?
other nominations?
Are you asking?
Seriously?
Are you begging?
Definitely.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous.
Do you want to do a roll call vote since we have a
yeah.
Zoom link?
Sure. All right, we'll do a roll call. Jen, we'll start with you.
I think that was an aye on Jen's part.
Walter Cole, yes.
Mary Ross, yes.
Alan Germain, aye.
Craig Weston, yes.
Bruce Mackey, aye.
Ellen Blanchard, aye.
Now you can't get out of it.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman.
thank you. Next on the agenda is nomination for vice chair.
Nominate Alan Germain.
And I'll second that. Any other nominations for vice chairman?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear. Did somebody nominate someone?
Yes, Alan Germain has been nominated and it has been seconded as vice chairman. Any other nominations? Hearing none. All those in favor of Alan Germain as vice chairman,
Let's do a roll
say
call.
aye. We'll do a roll
Jennifer
call.
Pratt, aye.
Walter Cole, aye.
Mary Ross, aye.
Alan Germain, aye.
Tom Walsh, aye.
Craig Weston, aye.
Bruce Mackey, aye.
Ellen Blanchard, aye.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay. Next on the agenda, I want to read the charge from the Board of Selectmen, and then, which is the fourth thing on the agenda, and then the fifth, we'll go into a little bit of a discussion about it and a little bit of background on the whole process, where we stand.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Germain.
Jen, can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I can hear okay when Tom speaks up. Yep.
That's, I just.
These,
mouthed backwards.
These working?
Yeah,
Yes.
working, yes.
All right, so we're going to read the charge from the Board of Selectmen to the Screening Committee. Item 1 is the task must meet and choose a chair by January 14th. Accomplish that. The task must use a consultant and may spend up to $20,000 for such purpose and may return to the Select Board if more money is needed. Next, the advertisement for town administrator must be placed no later than February 7th, 2022, unless a consultant is used. We have to review and receive all resumes, conduct interviews of selected candidates using questions established by the task or the consultant prior to the interviews. Reference and background checks to be done by the consultant or Human Resources Department. The task must comply with the Town Administrator Bylaw, Chapter 3, and the task must present up to 5 unranked finalists to the Select Board by April 15th, 2020. The note below is that the task must follow the provisions of the open meeting law as well as hold executive session in order to act in the best interest of the town. To the extent permitted by law, The Town Administrator Screening Committee shall maintain the names and any information about the candidates in strict confidence until the finalists are presented to the Select Board. Names and information pertaining to candidates not chosen as finalists shall be retained as confidential. Any questions regarding that? Comments or anything? All right. Moving to the next thing on the agenda is a comment by the task chair on search parameters, meeting process, background of the task process. Just for those that may or may not have been following what has occurred, I just thought it would be appropriate to give a little bit of background. We did this once before with the same committee, except for one change. Ellen Blanchard has replaced Adam Holmes. And the initial task, or task 1.0, if you will, was formed in June of 2021. And we got going in late June and basically did the bulk of our work through July and August, and worked with a September 1st deadline to have our list of finalists to the Board of Selectmen. These committees tend to be set up for the purpose, as I understand it, to try to take politics out of the process and to get a group of people to just come up with a list for the selectmen, and I think that we accomplished that. I think we did as good a job as could be done. I think we did keep it non-political, and the confidentiality of the applicants was preserved. And I think that it's good to remember that people that apply for these type of things are people that are usually working in other municipalities, or maybe anyway. Maybe they don't want the world to know that they're trying to move on or that they're trying to advance themselves. Could affect their careers negatively. So we should assume that everything that the information we get is confidential and shouldn't be shared with anyone. The finalists were presented by September 1st. We presented 3 finalists to the board. The next day, 1 withdrew, leaving 2, both of which were, after a process that dragged out for about a month and a half, were not found acceptable to the board. And the process, once it became with the Board of Selectmen, did get politicized on Facebook and otherwise. So now we have to step back from that, and we're not going to do any more of that, or no one should be. We're going to be resuming the status we had when we did it the first time. No politics involved, and we'll do a non-political process that's done properly as the best we can. Confidentiality being most important. We'll conduct our meetings much as we did the first time around, stressing that all comments should be made after being recognized by the chair and in a respectful manner to everyone, so that we don't have any back and forth that gets out of hand, as sometimes it does, and that me included. We should maybe try to be a little more respectful this time than we were the last time on a couple of occasions, myself included. Having said that, we will be offering a Zoom option on all meetings at the request of at least one member. And I think this Omicron is so prevalent, and so prevalent in Carver, that by having the Zoom option anyway, it gives, like for Jen, can take part in the meeting tonight. And anytime we put out an agenda, by the time it comes time for the meeting, someone's liable to be sick that wasn't sick when we put out the agenda. So let me see what other. So that's kind of the background of where the task process has gone. Plans going forward are, I think, the process we used the last time, which was, first of all, do they meet the requirements of the bylaw? Experience and educational wise is the first kind of cut, if you will. If it's a yes, from there it goes to do they get an interview? And that's pretty much how we did it before, and it seemed to work pretty well. Obviously, a lot of our work is in executive session. Anyone who is approached by anyone and asked anything about how things are going on the screening committee, I would ask that you just refer them to me, so that we don't have 9 different people getting bothered by other people that might be interested. My sense, well, we can go on to that. Any other comments at all?
I had a question. Have there been any changes to the requirements?
No.
For the position? No, okay.
No.
Are we gonna use the same question format? You wanna use the same questions, or are we gonna revamp those?
That's, I think we can do some revamping there, that we'll do that in open session later. Next thing we have to worry about is, it's my sense, listening to the comments from the Board of Selectmen in their discussions, that their preference would be, and I think ours was with most of us, that we use a consultant if we can. Our timing was so tight the last time that we gave it about 2 days to try to find one, and it was over a July 4th weekend, I think, and we didn't come up with one, and so we moved on. I would like to give it a little better effort this time. I think that, although some will argue that you don't need a consultant, and they have a good point, as soon as you don't get a lot of participation and you don't come up with a lot of good candidates, the first thing people go to is, well, if you had had a recruiter, you know, if you had had a consultant, and there was a lot of that second guessing by the select board. So let's move to what's the committee's feelings on how we approach a consultant. The way we did it last time was the chairman and one other member, and if you've seen Pat Maha's thing, he's indicated a willingness to do it again. He did it with me the first time, to work with Human Resources to see if we can find a consultant.
If I may, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I think I would be in support of using a consultant if we can get a consultant to work with us. So I think the list that we reached out to the last time, Shelby, do you have that list? Was Community Paradigm Associates on the list that we reached out to last summer?
I don't have the list in front of me, and I don't believe it was. I don't know if you can hear me.
So I know, I just brought that name up because the town of Kingston recently hired a new town administrator, and that is the consultant they used, was Community Paradigm Associates. So since a local town near us recently used that search firm, that might be one that we may want to consider using as well.
That is one that we looked at the last time, and we will certainly consider this time. You're right, they're one of the main players in the field. It depends who you talk to, like is often the case when there are some who are high on that firm, some that aren't. I don't think we asked them specifically last time because of feedback we had, but this time we'll probably will. Certainly there'll be one that is considered, certainly.
Yeah, so I would vote yes to reaching out to consulting firms to see if anybody's willing to work with us, and I would also be in favor of using them just since they've assisted another local municipality to us.
So are you saying that you're comfortable reaching out to consultants, or are you saying this is the consultant you want?
No, I think we should reach out to all of them.
Okay, all right.
Like the same group last summer, and add this one as well. And if there are any others that we know of, I don't think, can't hurt.
Exactly,
So
I agree. Hopefully we'll have a little better reaction from the consultants. Elaine, do you have any comments on this topic as the one that we're gonna work with on this?
Jen is right, we did reach out to 3 firms last time. I think Shelby reached out to them, and Community Paradigms was not one of those firms.
Right.
So we can, and basically there are 3 main firms, and I think it was suggested last time to reach out to 2 of those, and then there was another law firm that also performed the same functions, so I think that was the 3rd one that was reached out to.
All right.
So it can definitely be done differently, whatever
Right.
this committee wants.
Right, so we need to have someone work with Human Resources to see what consultants we have that would be interested for the budget we have or whatever, and does anyone have any planned suggestions on how to do that?
I have a comment I'd like to make before we start getting into suggestions with consultants, if I may.
Go ahead.
I'm going to be the bad guy in the room, I guess. Being the budget guy, this is a very different dynamic this time around than we had the last time. I'd like to see us put an ad out in several publications for a couple of weeks and throw a hook in the water and see what comes in. And then if we don't get a good response, or we only get 2 or 3 applications, then we can at a future meeting decide to add a consultant at that time. At this point in time, that $20,000 we're going to spend for consultant, and I tend to doubt it'll be that cheap when all is said and done, can be put to better use coming up on what's going to be a difficult budget season. So I wear a different hat, I guess. So that's just a thought that I had. If this board wants to go along with putting a consultant right up front and doing that, then I'll certainly go along with that, but this is just another idea that I had. I'd like to see us kick the water a little bit. You have plenty of time. There's no gun to our head this time.
My feeling is we should try to see if we can find a consultant first, and I don't think that approach, putting something out for a couple of weeks and doing anything based on that, I think we should use it, I think we should try to get a consultant.
Okay.
And I'm not looking at it from the point of trying to save 20 grand. 20 grand's real money, I understand that. But I think the wishes of the board are that we make an effort to find a consultant. If you do get a consultant, I'm not really sure exactly what they do and what we continue to do, but I think they do a lot of the work for you. And as the one that'll be doing a lot of the work, that if they don't do it, I would like to see us try a consultant. But that's just my opinion. I don't want to. I've looked at it as kind of a waste of time myself. Just my opinion.
But
You're putting something out for a couple of
Okay.
weeks, you know,
that's fine.
and then maybe you get 7, maybe you get 10. What's that tell you, really? I don't.
Could get 20, because we don't have a current administrator that's been offered the job, and that was, I think, a big deal.
Yeah, but we don't know. We do have an interim town administrator, and we don't know whether he's going to apply or not.
That's fine, but it's not an 18-year veteran who,
I agree.
do you know what I mean? So I really believe that did have something to do with the applicant pool the last time. You could be right. I mean, Common Center may decide this time to work with us, or Paradigm, or somebody. They turned us all down before. So who knows what the environment will be like this time. I know there was a reason we did not use Paradigm the last time, and there was a valid reason for it. I'd have to go back and look in the minutes and find out what that was, but there was a very valid reason why this committee did not want Community Paradigm in the mix.
Well, you want to make a motion?
What would you like?
I'll
I'll make a motion that we...
Does anyone want to
No,
make a motion?
I'll make the motion. I'll make a motion that we reach out to pick a number. You want 3, 4 recruiters? You want to send requests out to...
You want to
make a motion first to use a recruiter?
Why don't we make a motion it would be good to have a motion to have one or two people work with human resources to see if we have a consultant, if we can find a consultant.
Okay, so moved.
That's,
I'd
that would be a
Okay,
good
we'll do
motion.
that.
I'd like to make that motion that it's the chair and Pat Maha as we use.
All right, and we'll, working with Elaine and Shelby, we'll see if we can find consultants that are interested
Then I'll
in
second
helping
that.
us out. And then, I guess if we do,
We need to have another
back to
meeting.
the committee.
Yeah. We need to have another meeting.
We need to have another meeting, right, okay. And Elaine, can we talk about, you can sit up here or something, you don't have to hide behind Shelby. Can we talk about the process of hiring them? You and I had a brief discussion, I know, about what type of a procurement effort is going to be necessary to spend up to $20,000 to get a consultant on board, because how much time that will take is something I was wondering about.
Well, I think the first step, because you guys know what we went through last time, is that the consultants did not want to recruit for us. So I think the first step is asking for a quote and hopefully getting them to want to recruit for us, and hopefully we will get more than one quote for you.
Well, I know
to choose.
one didn't want them. They just said, we don't generally do that. We do help towns with town administrative searches, but we don't want to really do recruiting. And we had kind of emphasized that, so they dropped out right away.
Right.
But Paradigm was not one of them, and as Alan indicates, that was for a reason of that experience of a local town in dealing with them, but, you know.
Yeah, I thought it was simply because we did a cutoff of 3 and they didn't make the top 3, but I could be wrong there. I see both Alan and Tom's points. I'm actually afraid that we're going to get a ton of applications this time around, which is why I'm in favor of using a consultant so they can weed through and determine who's not eligible, so that we're focusing on people that meet our criteria.
Right.
So I'm kind of joining both of your opinions.
Okay.
But I'm kind of wondering if we'd want a consultant to present all the applicants anyway, whether they give it a plus or a minus and let us make that decision. I mean, obviously, we're not going to hire a truck mechanic from Ohio, but do you know what I mean? I'm not convinced
I'm
that,
sure we could ask them to still send us the resumes of everybody who applied, but then.
right, with their recommendations.
Paying them to do the legwork of, who actually meets our criteria, so they could say, here's everyone who applied, but these are the 12 that meet your bylaw criteria.
Right, and I'm not, I'll admit that I'm not really sure exactly with how they normally work, whether they do an initial screening. I think everything that comes in should be seen by this committee, with whatever, but how we work that out will just probably depend on if we find one and how they want it to work out and what works for us then. We could have another discussion then on exactly the dynamics. But as far as the procurement process, is it 3 quotes that we'd be looking for?
So you have to reach out to 3 firms,
Okay.
but if you don't receive quotes, then there's
Right.
nothing, you would have to have just made the effort.
Okay, all right.
I'd like to see us reach out to 5 firms. You might as well just do it up this time and see what we get.
There are 3 main firms. If you look in a publication like The Beacon, that's published by the Mass Municipal
Right, right.
Association, there are 3 firms listed, and then that one legal firm, which we did reach out to last time. So
Right.
we would
So we
most
do
likely
4.
just be reaching out to the 3 firms, and then if you wanted to do
Okay.
the legal firm again, we could try that as well.
So Pat and I will
Elaine,
work.
is Community Paradigm one of those 3?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
All right, so we have a motion that's been made and seconded to have the chairman and member Pat Maha work with the Human Resources and Procurement to see what interest consultants have in working with us on this process.
Yep.
Just a discussion, just through you, Mr. Chairman, just to understand, so obviously you and Mr. Maha would work on, with Elaine and Shelby on narrowing down that list. Was the intent to come back to the committee and have the committee pick that final consultant with an interview or such, and I'm not advocating either way, I'm trying to understand what the vision is. I certainly put my trust in the two of you to pick that thing, but there has to be some process rather than just a number. I mean, you know, obviously some sort of, if it's interview just with yourself and Mr. Maha, that to make sure they're gonna meet the needs of the committee, that.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I was gonna hope we found one before we,
Well, I mean, that,
but you're right, I don't know, and,
we got some time here,
What's
so it might,
what, I mean, do they, you know, do they come in and interview for the job? If let's say we get 2 or 3 that are now interested, how that is typically done, I don't know. I'd have to reach out to probably some other screening committees and see how they go about hiring a consultant.
Well, I assume if we're gonna get a quote, so they'll give us a quote, and that will come with probably a brochure or some information from them. I'd imagine that they'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
well,
I don't know if they have to come in.
I guess it
Well,
might,
that's the
that.
question, Alan, the process.
I think through the chair, last time you did it, you put out a set of criteria. I'm just gonna, my memory was like 8 bullet points.
Right.
That the companies quoted with a la carte menu, they quoted, and obviously we didn't get any back. But if we had, we would have got a final number, say $16,000 was the number. Are we, through procurement, are we obligated to go with that low number? Or is there a way to tie in an interview where you can base your number based on what we want to see? So, I'm not trying to confuse it, I'm just trying to make sure we've got some time here to do it right. If we develop just a quote sheet, then you're just gonna get a quote sheet back.
You're
And are you-
absolutely right, because once you ask for quotes, you have to take the lowest quote, which is why we did the list of criteria. Because you want to make sure, without doing an RFP, that they meet all of your criteria before you start getting into how can you choose them. So you want to make sure ahead of time.
Or do you do an RFP rather than
No.
quote?
Can.
I'm just asking, no, okay.
But
Is that why we did the a la carte?
I'm trying to recall exactly what we sent to them when we tried to find a consultant the last time. What did you send to them? I think you made it up.
Basically, it was bullet points. One of them was to develop, I think, a pamphlet for the town. One of them was to develop,
Yeah.
conduct the interviews. That was a price associated with it. And then,
That was from the 2013 time that they did hire a consultant.
came from somewhere probably.
Did we do that this
I think that
this time?
we had something similar. I don't think
I
it
don't
was
think we.
pamphlets and brochures, though, this time around.
Elaine's double checking.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, I think that that's what Pat and I have to do, all
Okay.
right? And then I don't want to do anything that makes it so that we have to take we didn't even include money at all in the last one. I think what Elaine sent out didn't have any
No.
money things at all. We just said,
Yeah.
we're looking for a town, we're looking for a consultant to work with
There
us.
was a breakdown that if they were interested, they were going to put in how much each one of those things was gonna cost,
Okay,
and then
that
a
could be.
total.
I don't have that in my file.
I think the motion should stay as it is. I just think
I think the
they
motion,
should just come back to the committee maybe with what your recommendation is or how we proceed from there.
well, through the chair, I think that the motion should be,
Yeah,
We
Craig
should-
had it.
we should call the motion now that establishes the chair and Pat and Human Resources, and then we can make another motion to set up how it's going to be done. This establishes this little subgroup to get that done without having it become a long motion as to what the requirements of it will be. So with all due respect, Mr. Chair, I would say call the question just for those 2 items, and then we'll,
Well, first of all,
define
we
it.
have a motion on the floor and it's been seconded.
right, to make you and Pat work with Human Resources and Procurement for the process.
Right. All right. So, and this is, I actually don't recall actually seeing this before, but that's, I'm sure I did. So this is what you'll send out again. And then if we're bound to take the low bidder, we don't need a second meeting. right?
Right, so we can work with you and Pat
So why don't we
again on
work
this
with
list.
me and Pat, and let's see what the results are of polling firms on this, and then we'll decide where we go from there.
So,
That's the best we can do.
Where we went the last time, because it was like Craig said, a quote sheet. We said it wouldn't necessarily be clear who the lowest bidder was, because it depends on which services we actually wanted to engage them to use. So the totals per firm could vary if they all responded, and we had more than one response.
Right, then the committee can decide.
I think we stick with the motion and just make sure you and Pat.
I think
And
we
we'll
should
just take a
probably-
look at some of this. I don't know about this reference checking at the end there. We could do it, well, I guess. We can take a look at that. But anyway, Pat and I would work with Elaine to send out something similar to this and see if we have any consultants that are interested. So we have that motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 I'm abstaining
Opposed?
because I don't have any information.
Okay.
Well, you're more than welcome to vote, because this is a whole brand-new motion, has nothing to do with the last time. This
But
just
you're all referring
establishes...
back to items that I don't have any information on.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
So now I would make a motion that when you develop your process, that process of however you put this together be left to the chair and Pat Maha. The first motion was that they become the representatives. This motion is that however they choose to lay out the format for this bidding process, or however we're gonna do this, and I'm totally against an RFP and being stuck with low bidder, but I'd like to see it worked out so that we're not stuck with possibly low bidder. We can choose the best recruiter instead of the cheapest recruiter. We leave this up to the chair and Pat Maha and Human Resources and the Procurement Process, and that when that decision is made, that we reconvene a meeting and those details are revealed and we vote on which recruiter or recruiters we want to, I assume there's going to be down to one, which recruiter we end up using.
I'll second that.
Was that a crazy motion, Shelby? Want me to define it a little bit better?
Could you just
Oh,
repeat
why don't
what
you-
you were,
Can I do it?
would you mind repeating it, please?
Got playback on that thing? The motion is that we allow the chair and Pat Maha to work with, I'll tell you what, let's make this, we'll call this the Procurement Committee. How's that, the subcommittee?
Try not to do that, because the subcommittee of a committee has to do posting and everything.
Okay. All right, well then, the chair, the motion is the chair and Pat Maha work with Human Resources and Procurement to determine the best method to put out the request for a recruiter. And then when that is determined, come back and this committee will vote on
Which company we would choose.
which company we would choose. So they can put the request out. When the replies come back, then the decision gets made by the entire committee. Yes?
Unless we have to, then you're gonna have to put it out in a way that you're not stuck with the low quote.
Is there a way we could, well, first of all, there's no second, so.
Oh, no, trying to understand what you said.
Well, I know. Well, we can't discuss it if there's no
So
second.
there is, and that would be an RFP. The only problem with that
Yeah,
is
I don't
that
want-
these companies may not respond to an RFP.
We don't wanna go to an RFP.
But that's the only way to get
But
what
isn't
you're
that,
asking for.
when I see that? isn't
Well,
that
this
what we
was not
said
an
there?
RFP.
Right, that is a request for quote.
Right. And
So-
if we put that out and the companies respond, do we have to take the low bidder?
Yes.
So if 3 companies respond to this form here, we have to take the lowest bidder on the list.
Right.
Although
Is
Jennifer,
that the same form that we used the
Yes,
last time.
yes, yes.
Yeah. But there's 5 different
But-
lines
so,
on
but
this.
the piece that you guys aren't taking into account is that sorry, COVID brain. There's a lot of different options on that sheet, and we're not necessarily saying that we're going to engage somebody to do all of those things. We just want to know their pricing on it so that we can make that decision. Some of those things we may choose to do ourselves if their pricing is astronomical. So the total of all those things gives you a number, but that's not necessarily the lowest number if we're picking piecemeal. So I think that's why we have to say, you know, that we enable, you know, the chair and Pat to, you know, recruit firms, but we come back and we analyze the responses to calculate, I guess, who the lowest bidder is, because we may not want them to do all those things. If somebody's going to charge an astronomical fee for background checks and we know we can do them cheaper, then we wouldn't pay them for that.
So that would be something that Pat and I would decide, I guess, and then bring it back here, is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I think that Jennifer's correct. I think
Yeah.
that the reason we did this on the 5 lines is because we didn't think that all recruiters would put a number beside every item. So that we may want someone to do item 2 more than we want them to do item 3, and this is the best recruiter for that. That's our focus, is what's on that page. It gave us some flexibility. I think we did that very much on purpose, so we wouldn't get stuck with the low bid number.
Correct.
This was kind of a stock thing you had. I mean, because we didn't put a lot of effort into this, we did it in a day. And then when we didn't get a results by the next day, we extended it a day, and that was it. So maybe we can revise this, right, to only those things that we definitely want a consultant to do.
Yeah, you can also do what Jen said and put these all down as options. And we'll just put option next to them in
And that
parentheses.
gets us where from a procurement point of view.
Then you all can decide what options you want to add.
That's,
So then, that way, we're not bound by the adding up the
Right.
lines.
And that allows us to
Right.
pick the.
Right,
the
that's what we want to.
That's perfect.
That's what we want to do, yeah. Okay, so do we still need your motion?
we need it, we need,
I'll second the amended motion.
You got that, Shelby?
I'm sorry,
Read what
Sheldon.
you have. Well, if you can't, we gotta do it again.
Yeah, can you repeat?
That the chair and Pat Maha, in conjunction with Human Resources and Procurement, put together an à la carte list for procurement, or for
Options.
for options for a recruiter.
Consultant.
That's it.
Consultant, right?
For options for a consultant, well, a recruiter consultant / consultant. Because they use the word recruiter in their charge, so recruiter /
And to
consultant.
report back to the committee.
And those results report back to the committee. That's it.
Yeah, responses get reported back to the committee.
Right. Now that needs a second.
We have a second? Okay, it's been seconded. Discussion?
Thank God.
Okay, seeing none?
Was there any time limit you were gonna leave them out there to get this, so people advertise?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Let's
You'll
just
you'll
let us
decide that.
go and see we'll see what happens, you know. I don't, yeah, no, I don't think so, not right now. I don't have
Just let us
time
know
in
how you're
mind.
making out by Friday, that's all.
Any further discussion?
Well, that is a good point. Do we want to determine, or do we
Oh,
want to
you
leave
let-
to Pat and the chair, but should we ask?
Maybe we can just let
recruiting
Pat and I
firms
try to
respond by,
get this process going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
like, certain date?
We'll leave it up to Pat and the chair, I think that'll be fine.
Give us the option of, I'm not even sure when I can get Pat in here, you know.
All right, we trust you.
I'm not sure that's a good idea, but.
Listen, you asked for this, but you wanted this job.
Didn't ask for anything. Okay, so we have a motion, it's been seconded. Shelby, you have the motion?
Yeah, I made it, I simplified it. She
Okay.
scribbled out a lot of stuff.
All those in favor of the motion as?
Aye?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so unanimous. All right, and there are no topics not reasonably anticipated, at least by me. Does anyone have anything further to come up before we talk about the next meeting?
The only thing that
Yes, Mr. Jimmy?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. When you read off the charge, I think you said must use a consultant, and the charge was may. I just don't want the audience, when they see this, to confuse that. It was May, right? Yeah, it is may.
Yeah.
I'd like to see this attached to the minutes, so that when this gets posted on the website under the Town Administrator Screening Committee, they'll actually see this. Okay, if you don't mind? It just eliminates, it heads off a lot of questions.
Anything else, Mr. Germain?
That's all I got.
I just had a question on the timeline that they have given us.
Yeah.
With an April 15th deadline,
Mhm.
I just wonder why they gave so much time before the advertisement needed to happen. Because then that really gives you March.
Well, no, what they said, the advertisement had to happen by February 7th, so it gives you February and March.
That's true.
And I think that they looked at it, I don't know what was going through their heads, and if you watched the meeting,
Probably don't know either.
there was a lot of discussion. I think that the feeling was that they wanted to give us enough time to try to find a consultant, but not see the process delayed any longer than was absolutely necessary
Right.
to move it along.
I think they assumed it was going to be a couple of weeks before we could get a consultant on board, maybe 3 weeks, and they needed to get it advertised, so they gave us that, really the month of January to do that.
And one other thing, I don't know, maybe it's already been provided to Ellen, but we had received a copy of the bylaw of what the minimum requirements are.
Yeah.
If we can make sure that we provide that to Ellen.
I downloaded what was on the webpage for the.
Yeah, whatever's in the town bylaws.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
Thank you, Mary.
We should get you a copy, though, of the questions that we asked at the last session, so you
Please.
can make some notes in case there's things you want to add or subtract or make some changes to. That'd be fair.
I just want to know what they were.
Yeah. I don't think we're going to need 30 questions this time around, because some of them
We'll
were
get to that.
duplicates, you know.
That's something we'll do in open session at the appropriate time.
Okay.
Anything else? Right?
No.
Anything? Bruce?
No.
You said anything? All right, so as far as next meeting, what do we, easier to schedule it after we have a little time to work with this. Why don't we leave it open? We'll, once we have something to report on the consultant issue, then we'll have another meeting at that point, and I would think we'd get back to you within a week or two with another meeting.
To be determined.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think our next meeting would be to discuss consultant firms, if any, and if there's not any, then to discuss our next step. So
Right.
I think. you
So
would
we'll get
have
back,
to do
so
your
after,
work
you
first.
probably, maybe I didn't speak up enough. After we have had a chance to see how this consultant process goes, then we'll pick a time when we have something to report, and Shelby will reach out to everyone for a date that works for everyone.
Can we find out if anyone has a particular day during the week that is not, they're not available? You know, just going forward?
Okay, is there a date that someone's not available?
Or I just meant day of the week.
Day of the week?
You know,
Is
like
there a day
always
of the week
Tuesdays,
that,
they have meetings.
I mean, I'm available, I can be available any day. Tuesdays, the biggest problem is getting this room, which we may not be able to do all the time. Anyone have a day that's, they're in church that night and
Just
absolutely
Tuesdays.
can't make it?
As long as it's after 5 on Wednesdays, I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah, I think 5 o'clock works, only because I'll
Yeah.
have FinComs at 7 and Concoms at 7. Bruce will have Planning Board at 7.
And Board of Assessors is at 5:30.
Yeah. Well, but you guys are only, what, once a month?
Yeah, so those are times.
Depends.
Is there any day of the week that is absolutely, no one
No.
wants to have a meeting on that day, other than, I think Friday would be obviously avoidable, good to avoid if possible.
But I think the open calendar really is Thursdays is the least used of town hall.
Right.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday seem to be the toughest.
So to go back to the question, I don't see anyone saying there's any day
No.
that they absolutely can't
Okay.
meet,
That's cool.
okay?
Well, I'm just saying Tuesdays seem to be kind of difficult.
Yeah, there are some days that are better than others, depending on the scheduling, there's no question, but there's no day that any one day that no one can meet, that's during the week. Okay, again,
All right.
question. Anything else?
Motion to adjourn?
All those in, second?
I'll second.
All right. All right, all those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we're adjourned.